because then people can ask us questions. So that's fun.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
So, hi, welcome to another episode of Whatever on Wednesday. I'm here with a very special guest, my friend Amber Riley. Hi, Amber. Thanks so much for coming on. So, not only is Amber my friend, I have exciting news. This is the preview of our show that's coming up next week. This is going to be a continuation, a weekly show, and I'm so excited. Amber's I'm going to let Amber introduce herself, but she's a fitness guru. She's a personal coach and a fitness coach, and she has a great program. I'm going to let her reveal the title because she says it so much sexier than I do. So Amber, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the audience more about you, and then we'll tell them more about our show as we go along.
So my name's Amber Riley, and I am your Look Good Naked coach. So I am a personal trainer, life coach, nutritionist. So I kind of cover all around bases. I am a former therapist and then turned to the fitness world. So what I've done now is I've just combined the mental health and the fitness aspect, so you get an all-around transformation. So I'm looking forward to this show, tips and tricks on how to look good naked and how to love yourself, even if you don't.
So I'll be good at that part. You got the first half of it. I'll be good at the second half of it. So we're both mindset geeks, and we're both care about fitness and health and all of those great things and positivity. So tell us more about your show. And already we have some listeners and some folks tuned in. I just want to say hi to Justin and Annette and Randy. They're tuning in, and we appreciate the support, certainly. And Justin's 18 and he's mesmerized by the Look Good Naked part. So he's commented on it several times. We're not going to reveal that part of ourselves on the show, Justin. So it's not going to be quite that kind of show. We're just going to be talking about it. We're not going to be revealing ourselves or any details. So that's a fun aspect. So tell us a little bit about your program, and I'm going to interject and tell you a little bit about how I do things.
So my program is called The Life You Love. So creating your life by design instead of default. And the reason I created my program is because when I got into the health and fitness journey, I went full in with just your physical appearance, and I competed in a bodybuilding show. But when I had a series of negative events happen, it kind of left me like I hit a wall, and I didn't know how to move on. And it wasn't until I got into, personal development and mindset, I had to learn a whole new skill set than what I even learned with the 10 years that I was a clinical therapist. So I learned that, oftentimes we live a life just by default. We don't really put the pieces in place like we think we are, but we're not really doing what we want to live the life by design, the life that we've always wanted. So, the health and nutrition is fairly easy to do, but it's not about just gaining a physique. You want to be able to maintain that physique. So in order to do that, you've got to have all the pieces, and the mindset's the biggest one.
I agree. And I talk about it as if it's a tripod. If you don't have all three pieces, then it falls over and you're not successful. And I think that there's
that. I'm gonna have that.
Well, we can share it. It's a show now. We're partners. So I think that for me, that was exactly what the piece was missing. My weight has yo-yoed and cycled throughout my entire life. And I think really until about 5 or 6 years ago, I really didn't have a great handle on it. And even now it fluctuates and I struggle. I think the body image is so pervasive, and especially for young people coming up. And I've spoken about this before. I mean, when you think about the young women today, I mean, it's one thing when, 20 years ago, you had supermodels on the cover of a magazine, but now everybody is a photographer. Every camera has a filter. I mean, we don't even know what some of these young people look like. And when you look, and I think, and let's talk about this. Remember a few weeks ago when, and maybe it was a month or so ago, when Khloe Kardashian, a picture was leaked of her that didn't have a filter on, and she looked phenomenal. I mean, particularly in regard to how she had looked previously, and the uproar. She had her people take the photo down because it wasn't filtered and it wasn't the image that she wanted to portray. And on one hand, I totally see that, because we all I wear makeup, and they do things to enhance my appearance. But at the same time, I think it really speaks to the pervasive mindset that you really have to be perfect, and if you're not, you can't have a picture out there. And at the same time, I don't want any horrible pictures out there of me. I pull them down too. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Body image is a huge deal, especially with our younger crowd. I know for me, I apologize if you hear my dogs in the background, but I know for me, body image became an issue probably in middle school. And I don't really think that this is just a female dominated issue. I really do feel that our boys and our men have body image issues too. It's just that they are not as comfortable talking about it because it's not acceptable for them to worry about it. So that's why for me, it kind of, my mission to help women fall in love with the image staring back at them in the mirror, it hits home because I remember I was 14 years old. I was cheering on the cheerleading team, and I was in little girl heaven. My dreams come true. And we were at a cheerleading practice, practicing a stunt. And I was one of the flyers in the air. And we'd been practicing for about 20 minutes. And about all that time, the stunt came down. All the girls were tired. We needed a break. And at that time, I heard my coach say, "Amber, you are dead weight." And I'm sure she was saying many other things to many other cheerleaders, but that's all I heard. And so for the next 10 or 15 years, I was obsessed with having that perfect physique. The ones that we compare ourselves on the magazines, even though they're not real and they're airbrush, but I wanted that. And I went about it all the wrong ways. Like, my first diet was a starvation diet. I think everybody, attends to that one first. And then I just went about it all the way wrong ways. I was never happy with the physique. And I got tired of camouflaging what I looked like in clothes. You add an accessory here so that it takes away from looking at another body part. And I was just exhausted with that. So its body image is huge. We really do need to focus on this with girls and with boys, that those images on magazines are not realistic, guys.
So I want to pull up a comment that I love, and my friend Justin had a great. Chris, can you pull up Jason's comment, which really is intelligence is way sexier than looks. So just my opinion, and that's one of the reasons why I like Jason so much. He's that certainly appeals to most women, at least most intelligent women. I don't know about the ones who aren't, but to the intelligent ones, that's a great comment. And I think that now he's got me flustered. I don't even know what to say here. But I do want to speak to the detriment of eating disorders, and I've struggled with that myself. The starvation, and I'm all in on something. I'm either all in or all out. So so when I'm in a healthy frame of mind, I'm in a healthy frame of mind. And when I'm in an unhealthy frame of mind, then I'm in an unhealthy frame of mind. And sometimes it's not always food. There've been times in my life when I've drank too much, or, I've gotten wrapped up in relationships, or, just obsessed about even other people. And I think that it really takes away, it detracts from what you really need to address. And I think you said it exactly right. We all know the exercise. We all know to eat less and exercise more. That's the basis. But unless you really take a look at all of the other things in your life, they're only going to take you so far. And usually you abandon those, right?
You just sparked something in me. So that's actually in my program, is if you are going about this weight loss journey by trying to eat less and exercise more, it is a recipe for disaster. It's not going to happen, guys. First of all, how long can you maintain that? You know what I'm saying? And it's all about maintaining. We're not trying to get a physique and just have it short term. We want to keep that physique, and that's not realistic. So it's not so much about eating less, it's about eating the right foods that are filling your body's, like, all of your organs and your necessary endocrine system. It's helping those so that it doesn't yearn for those foods that you don't need. So it's not really about eating less. I just wanted to touch on that. I know that's not what the show is about, but I don't want people to get this impression that if I just eat less and I exercise, more calories out versus in, it's not really about that. It's a whole balancing system. And I promise you
Okay.
guys, I don't the probably the very worst thing in my opinion is to be hungry. Like, that's the worst feeling in the world, is to be hungry. So I don't go by that philosophy, and it's been very successful for me.
And I agree. But I think that that's what people attach their hopes to.
Hmm.
And I think that there's also a sense of failure there if it doesn't work for them. And in my coaching training, one of the things that I found really, even as many diets as I've been on in my life, one of the things is that, one of the first lessons was that there are over 100 dietary theories, and almost every single one of them work. They may not work for everybody, but every single one of them work if you do them to fidelity. But they're not necessarily the key for you, and they're not sustainable. So I think that you're right. Nutrition is really the key, not necessarily diet. We want it to be a lifestyle. We want people to be uh, to feel. We don't want to talk about deprivation, and I think that that's exactly what you're saying. So Randy said, Chris, can you bring up Randy's comment? It's hard to eat the right foods. I try and succeed for a few days, then fail. It's very difficult.
So
And I
let me
think,
talk about that for a second. When you go about an eating program, I understand what Joanne and I are both. We're all or nothing type people, so I get that. But when you invest in an eating program, if you're looking at that eating program and you cannot imagine yourself doing it for 6 months to a year, then it's not a good idea. Because again, this is a lifestyle change. This is not a temporary fix that we're going to try to get this physique. This is a lifestyle change. So I would say don't go 100%. It's not an all or nothing thing. Take a couple of foods, maybe even one. If you're really struggling to stick to that diet, take one food out every week and add one other food. And then do that every single week, and to where you've gotten to where you can adjust to this new lifestyle instead of it having just thrown on you. Because if I tell you you can't eat X, Y, and Z, do you want to know what you're going to crave? X, Y, and Z.
you're
So
right.
it's not about not having something, it's about having things in proportion. And as long as you are living your lifestyle in a certain way, it's okay to deviate sometimes, guys. It's not an all or nothing.
So I'm going to ask Randy a question. I know he's out there, and I think that this is, and it's been problematic for me in my life when and I know that he's a bachelor, he lives alone. The cooking issue, when you're cooking for one, I think that that's tough. I mean, people don't necessarily, even myself, when I'm alone in the house, I don't want to cook a big meal. I want something nutritious that's easy, and it's not a lot of cleanup. It's a lot of not an effort and time. And I'm just wondering if that's an issue for anybody. And even if it's not, what do you suggest for that, Amber? I think that
So
that
I've
is
been
an issue.
single probably most of my whole life. So I can actually speak to this. I agree with you. I don't want to cook a big meal for myself. So what I do, and this is also a double reason. Again, I don't like to go hungry, and I always want to have food. So I meal prep. So I may take a half a day, maybe on Sunday, and I will cook all of the protein that I need for the week, and I'll cook all the vegetables. Sometimes I'll go as far as putting them in individual containers, but as long as they're pre-cooked, when you're hungry, you don't have to worry about making yourself a meal. You've already got it made. You just nuke that stuff in the microwave.
Agreed. That's what I typically do too. And it's much easier, I find, when you have a grill. Even if you have a little tabletop one, a little George Foreman, that's really my best advice. And I think that another key is that protein is our friend. A lot of people don't, and I'm not a no carb type person, but I do think that a no protein type person is really not doing themselves any favor. It's
The
it's
first
really difficult.
question, the first question you need to ask yourself at every single meal is, what is my protein source? That is the first thing. Then you fill in your carbs and your vegetables, all that after that. But what is your protein source? Because carbs are going to give you energy, but carbs are not going to build protein. I mean, not going to build muscle. And muscle is what keeps you thriving. Muscle, 1 pound of fat burns 1 calorie an hour. 1 pound of muscle burns 10 calories an hour, and it burns it even while you're sleeping. So we want to eat those amino acids that are going to build those muscles.
So Annette wants to give us a shout out. Chris, bring up Annette's comment. She needs meat, so she's a protein girl. So I think that she has the right. And there are so many different types of protein. We
Yeah,
got
it's not
fish, we
all
got
animal products,
chicken, right?
guys. Yeah, you
Um,
can get your protein through through plant proteins. Now, I won't lie, I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not a vegan. I am looking to try that lifestyle out just to see what it's like because I do believe it's overall healthy. But if you think about us as our ancestors grew up, we were actually never plant based completely. You know, we went out and hunted and gathered. So we didn't have meat every day, but we did have it a couple times a month. So I'm not against meat. I'm not on either camp of that. I just know that protein is your number one staple. You've got to have that.
Agreed. Um, so Justin has a question, and he's 18. I'm not sure why he's throwing this out, but and I think that this is a topic that I do like to talk about, but I don't necessarily like to talk about it with Justin. But he's asking if you drink, and I don't typically drink. I very rarely drink. I find that, and it's not so much that I dislike alcohol. I find that when I drink, first of all, I like to be mindful of what I say, but also I eat more. I want to eat. You know, I want to go off the rails when I drink. So that's really why I don't drink. I like to keep myself in
Well, I
check.
think we can all know those Taco Bell late nights after a night of drinking. So I am not a big
Absolutely.
drinker. I don't say that I don't ever drink. I'm not saying I won't enjoy a glass of wine or have a drink here and there. I'm not a particularly big drinker because I just don't care for the taste of it.
Mm.
um it I just don't want to taste the alcohol when I'm drinking, so it kind of defeats the point. But it's not to say that you can't have alcohol and still be on that health and fitness journey of losing weight. You can just be smart about, like, if you're drinking a mixed drink, what are you mixing with it? Because you're already going to have sugars in your alcohol, so what is the component that you're mixing in it? So just be about smart. It's not about depriving yourself of anything, guys. You can still have fun, still enjoy yourself. But I agree with Joanne. You are going to have those inhibitions is going to be weakened so that you're not going to have that control to stop yourself from those late night eatings.
And so this is something that most of the people on listening, Justin may not know, but in a past life, I was a bartender. So now I know how to make a very low calorie drink. If anybody's interested, message me on the side and I can give you the tricks to that because I'm always mindful of that. So Annette knows me very well, and we can bring that comment up, Chris, and then we'll get off of this topic. So. And that said, you are so funny when you drink, Joanne, and a great bartender. We enjoyed ourselves, and that's certainly for sure. And that's my friend and I actually bartended at her establishment. And yeah, I had a great rep as a bartender. So I'll give myself that shout out. But so, what do you want to talk about next? Let's talk about water, since we're on the topic of drinking. I mean, that is so critical, I think, to a healthy lifestyle.
So I often hear people say that I don't like water, and I won't lie, it's an acquired taste. But let me tell you guys, so I'm sure you all have heard this, but 70%, 76% of your body is made of water. So water is the number one thing that removes all of the toxins from every single cell in your body. So if you're trying to release weight, lose weight, however you want to term it, it's not going anywhere if you're not pumping enough water in your system. So as far as how much water, that does vary. Of course, you've got the 8 glasses of water. I don't personally feel that that is enough. I think that everybody needs at least 3 liters of water a day. I typically go for a gallon, but that's a lot to introduce to people. Now, I would recommend that if you're drinking this water in the beginning, when you start to add more water to your daily consumption, you are going to use the restroom more frequently. But if you stick with it, your body will start to be able to metabolize that to where you're not visiting the restroom so frequently. So, but you do have to stick with it. Um, as far as getting that taste in there for the water, I'll tell you what I'm drinking right now. I don't know if you can see this, but I have cucumber in my water. So I have a little Brita water filter and I put cucumbers in there so it soaks overnight, and then I just put a couple cucumbers in my water bottle. Just something to give it that a different taste, because water, yeah, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of water. I try to drink a gallon as well. I don't always hit the mark. When I'm really on, I am. But I typically use a couple of those water drops, which there are chemicals in there too. So that's an acquired taste as well. Tim Fielder is calling out about electrolytes. There are a lot of waters with electrolytes,
Yeah,
and
I want to talk on that a little bit.
yeah.
So The problem with the health and wellness world is that we hear these electrolytes, or like Gatorade, for example, it's so good for you, but guys, it's not. It's really actually dehydrating you. So what they're really giving you is sugar. They're not really giving you electrolytes. So you've got to be super, super careful, because unfortunately we have a lot of marketing around these products, and the marketing isn't coming from people that necessarily have our best interest at heart. They really just have, let's sell more products. So I would just say research that. I will tell you, there is a company that I have supplements with. It's called Visayo, and they have a V3 drink. So if anybody's interested, you're more than welcome to message me on Facebook or Instagram, and I'm happy to get you hooked up with that. It's an amazing product. It's all natural, and these products are made with just real food, like just real food. That's it. There's no added sugars. There's no nothing. So if you're looking for your electrolyte drinks, I would just say read the label very carefully. It Sugar comes in 50 different names.
So Tim Filler saying he drinks 64 ounces of water daily and uses electrolytes when he works out. And I have used electrolytes myself on occasion. I'm not sure if I see the difference. So that's, I think that that's a personal decision, and you really have to do what works for you. I think a rule of thumb, especially for people who are just starting out drinking water, because it's overwhelming when you're in the bathroom all day. I recommend starting out to half your body weight in ounces, and that's a good starting point. And then work your way up to
You will tell,
a
though, the
gallon.
more water that you consume, you'll notice that not only is your digestion sped up, so by your digestion speeding up, it also increases your energy reserves. So, and it's not like a lightning bolt hits you all at once. It does take a couple of days to get in your system, but you'll notice everything speeding up and everything working a little bit better.
I agree. So I want to backtrack. Chris, can you go back to one of Randy's comments, which I think is very important, and it's the one where, let me see where he says, he's speaking about determination. Let's see. Randy says, my main problem that I run into when healthier eating is determination. And I think that that's really a critical component. And that speaks to mindset again, which, so in my perception, change starts with a decision. I mean, the implementation is difficult, but the decision isn't. You just have to get up. And even if you don't want to make a decision that's, a year-long commitment, just make one decision that day. I'm going to drink more water today. I'm going to eat a healthy lunch, and just start with small steps. Sometimes you have to fake it until you make it, because a healthy lifestyle it's not going to be all at once. And I often start, when I get derailed and I want to get back on track, I start with one thing. I don't, start with a whole full transformation of my diet, or start running 5 miles a day. I just build up to it. I make one decision. Today, I'm going to drink 64 ounces of water. Tomorrow, I'm going to walk 5 miles, or next week, I'm going to walk 5 miles. And I just do it in pieces, because one small step is going to get you further than where you are today.
I agree. That's why I was recommending earlier, when you're trying a new diet, don't try to eliminate everything or add everything in one. Just do one thing a week. Introduce your body to one thing. Once you've gotten an acquired taste for that and you enjoy it, add something else and delete something else. Don't make it an all or nothing, to where you're going to start missing that old lifestyle because you haven't yet felt the effects of living a healthy lifestyle. If there's a process to it. It's not a quick fix.
And I think, to make it fun. I mean, and I'm going to call Randy out again, because I know this past weekend he went to a softball tournament, and that was a fun time for him. And it was also social. It was a way to incorporate exercise in, and to be social with some friends and peers and family members. And I think that join a softball league if you're even if you're not great at it. I'll tell you, a couple years ago, I was invited to join a kickball team. And I was invited under false pretenses, and that's a different story. I thought it was something different. And I'll tell you, I'm the worst kickball player in the world, but it was a really great time. I thought I was going to be great at it. I played softball in high school, and that was a while ago too. But yeah, but I still had fun. I got some exercise in. I looked foolish, but I'm so over that now. If I look foolish, if I'm having fun and I look foolish, I don't care.
And that's what I would recommend if people are starting a new exercise program. don't just do what everybody else is doing. What do you enjoy doing? What's something that you've always joined? And if you don't necessarily have something, then definitely join a team sport, because the community is what gets you involved. There's the accountability where you got to show up. So even if you don't feel like it, you got that other person depending on you and counting on you, or a team of people counting on you. So yeah, and even if you don't thoroughly enjoy it, you're getting out of your element and you're having fun, and you can do something different the next time. So that's a
Right.
great idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a team. My sister and I work out every morning, and just the fact that if she's not going, oftentimes I don't get up to go to the gym. But if one of the other of us are going, then we're much more likely to go. She'll text me at 5 a.m. Are you going to the gym today? And even when I don't want to, I'm certainly not going to let my younger sister beat me out of any
Not working,
activity.
yeah.
I got to outshow her. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going. Are you crazy? And but if she's on vacation, or even tonight, right before the show, we have to sign in by a certain time. She said, "Are you going?" I said, "Well, are you?" "Of course I'm going." So I think
Have that
one
accountability
person,
partner.
yeah,
Have that
one person
accountability.
is enough.
Mhm.
So let's get to some of our comments. Annette wants us to get a kickball league going. That'll be fun.
Ooh, yeah.
Let's get that going. Healthy lifestyle starts in the mind. That's another great comment. And Randy, that's his problem. He changes his entire lifestyle at once, and then he experiences burnout. And I think
Withdrawal.
that and I think that that's so true of everybody. And just take it slow. Take it slow. Um,
Because look at it this way, guys. Let's say you go all in and you change everything for 3 months. Okay. And that's great. You'll probably have some success. That's great. But in 6 months, if you look in the same way you looked before because you had such a total shock to your system that you couldn't not miss what you used to live, I mean, wouldn't you much rather have a half the results but be on your way and not have stopped than you know what I'm saying, than to go backwards? There's nothing more frustrating than losing the weight and gaining it back. To me, that's such a killer on your self-esteem. Just you've done all this work and then you let it go to waste. I would hate to see that. I'd rather people make slow progress and keep it up as opposed to the yo-yo dieting, the losing weight, gaining it. It's miserable.
So let's talk about, and this is always a big topic for me, the the components of exercise and food. I mean, I believe in that it's 80% in the kitchen,
Mhm.
absolutely, and 20% exercise. Um, and I think that that's really key. If you're mindful that, and my own son does this. I see him all the time. He's on the treadmill, he's going out for a run, and then he comes in and eats, a gallon of ice cream. And I'm like, buddy, if you're trying to lose a couple pounds, it's not going to work. You really have to be mindful of what you're doing in the kitchen. He tries to compensate with exercise, and that's just another type of eating disorder. It's
I work out so that I can eat this. That's what
exactly.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So what do you think about the 80/20? Do you agree with that? And
I do believe in the 80/20 rule. Because you can try to plan. You can try to plan for everything, but life happens, guys. Let's be realistic. And if you are so determined to make that 100% mark, then when life happens, you're going to be so disappointed and you're just going to fall off the track and you're not going to get back on. So, yes, plan 80% of the time. Absolutely plan, but allow yourself a little, and it's not even a mess up. You're deviating just a little bit. So, absolutely plan 80% and then life happens 20%.
so Justin brings up another good point. What about stress? Does it have an effect on you? And of course it does. I mean, stress has the biggest and one of the biggest impacts on the body that of almost anything. I mean, and that's something to be mindful of. That's another thing that you have to kind of control and find strategies and mechanisms to deal with stress, because stress can derail the best of eating programs. People who stress eat, stress drink, and that's making a good point that cortisol increases in the body when you're under stress, and it derails your best intentions. Um, so what do you think? What are
Yeah,
your
stress is a huge one. It so when you have stress, your body produces what's called cortisol. And when your cortisol is heightened, then you're not going to be able to release the weight. So I actually have 7 steps to my program. And the 7 steps are, the first one is breath. People tend to forget that one. Second is hydration. Third is nourish. Fourth is grateful movement. Fifth is detox. Sixth is rest. And seven is community. So when we are trying to lose weight, generally what we're thinking about is the endocrine system. We're thinking about, let's drink the water, let's eat the food, let's move the body. But what we don't realize is that the endocrine system works off your central nervous system. So if you're not doing the things that it needs, you're not going to release the weight, and your cortisol are going to stay spiked. So the breathing exercises, you can get these on the internet. They can be simple as, 30-second breathing exercise, but we just want to take full deep breaths. And then what most people don't realize is rest. So all of these things that you're doing, guys, the eating right, the working out, those are all catabolic activities for our body. You actually don't lose any weight until your head hits that pillow at night. So losing weight is a hormonal game. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your hormones happy so that you can lose the weight. You won't do that until you sleep at night. All your hormones are assimilated at night. Everything is recharged. Our bodies are no different than our cell phone. What do we do to our cell phones every single night before we go to bed? We plug them in. Sleep is our body's way of recharging. Nothing happens till you do that. So I had a client recently that he was your dream client, actually. Do anything you want him to do. Do the workouts, eat the right food. And he hit a plateau. And I couldn't understand it. I had changed his workouts. I had changed his nutrition. And he wasn't having any results. So he sends me a message and he's like, what do you think if I add a second workout? I can do it after I wrap this up before I start my second job. And I was like, whoa. Before you do what? How many hours are you sleeping at night? He's like, I sleep about 4 or 5 hours, but I'm never sleeping. I'm like, okay, because your body is an adaptation machine. That's what the human body is it adapts to whatever you give it to consistently. So if you're depriving it of sleep, eventually it's going to start working on fewer hours of sleep. But what that does is it causes the rest of the body's functions to kind of delay. They're just not going to work. So in the beginning, you're still going to want to sleep 4 or 5 hours, but give yourself that 7-8 hour window, even if it's just to lay there. You've got to rest. Take that 7th day off of working out. You do not need to train 7 days a week. 6 days is fine. Take that 7th day. Rest your body.
Totally agree. So we're getting some comments, and several, both Justin and Annette, have spoken about bad relationships and the toll that they have. And of course, that's another component of stress. And I'm not saying this is easy, but and I've been so guilty of this myself in the past, that I've let relationships influence me beyond what is healthy. And I'll say it diplomatically like that. And I've learned, and I've gotten some great advice on that. Don't turn your body into a battleground. I mean, you don't punish yourself with food. You don't reward yourself with food, and you certainly don't. You're giving somebody else the power over your health when you let a bad relationship impact your healthy habits. And that's something that I've learned, but it took me a long time. And there are still times when a relationship will get under my skin, and I find myself, I'm more of a punishing person. I punish myself more so than I comfort myself with food. And when somebody else makes me feel badly, and of course, we're all responsible for our own emotions and feelings, but the reality is sometimes people do get under our skin. And and I think you're right. It does, but please don't let the opinions of anybody else derail your health or your intentions or your lifestyle.
Relationships are huge, because let's think about it. Let's say you start a new diet and you go to the office and everybody's they're going out to eat, or they're having a potluck, and you can't eat with them, and they're like, oh, it won't hurt you just this one time. So
Yeah.
when you are making a decision to change your life, what happens is that makes other people automatically self-reflect. And they're not always ready to join that bandwagon. They don't necessarily want to do the inner work and work on themselves. So community is huge. Relationships is huge. I can tell you, me personally, I terminated 3 friendships just this year. And it was a very difficult thing for me to do. These friendships I'd had for over 10 years. But there was just this feeling in my gut that we weren't lining up, like our futures weren't lining up, and they weren't serving me and the person that I want to become. It was heart-wrenching when I terminated these friendships. And in the beginning, I felt sad. I felt bad. Because like I said, some of these have been, over 10 years of friendship. But what I realized is that when you eliminate what I come to find was toxic people, the universe automatically grants you other people that are going to serve your higher self. So it's difficult to terminate a relationship, especially if they've served some value, or you love them. But you got to constantly think about what is in your best interest, what is serving you, what's going to take you to that higher place.
And that's so important. And so many, and I don't want to say that men, but it's really a big issue for women, I find, because they become so indoctrinated to believe that they need a relationship to complete their lives. And then, Chris, can you bring up Annette's comment? And this goes along with what we're saying. When you accept your powerlessness over toxic people, you gain control over yourself. And that's so true. And and I don't, this is often something that I speak about too, where people say happiness comes from within, and of course that's true, but at the same time relationships enhance our lives. And we weren't meant to be alone in the world. So it's a double. I agree with that philosophical point, but I think that there's a little more depth to it than it's just like money. I love that other one, money, what is it? Money doesn't make you happy, but it sure makes it a lot easier to get there. So I think that those are two things that I always am mindful of, those all or nothing comments. And then I saw another question. Justin has, well, all right. So Randy's asking a good question, and this is really, I think, important because he often works the graveyard shift.
Okay.
He's saying, how much sleep is healthy for a person, and how much sleep is too little or too much?
So typically the correct amount is 7 or 8. Now, like I was leaning to earlier, if you are accustomed to 4 or 5 hours of sleep, when you go to sleep 6, 7, 8 hours, your body's not going to do it. It's just used to functioning on 4 or 5 hours. Now, working the graveyard shift puts a little bit other obstacle in your way, in that our bodies are designed to work with the sun. So we have a circadian rhythm that operates by the sunlight. So this is the first time in human history in the past 50, 100 years that when the sun goes down, we go home and we light up our houses. We turn our TVs on with lamps on, what I'm saying? We've got all these gadgets, but our bodies weren't designed for that. So our bodies were, when the sun goes down is when our bodies are starting to like acclimate to the darkness and get into that pre-sleep mode. So with shift work, it is going to be a little bit more difficult, but what I would encourage you is to just give your body at least enough time to sleep. Even if you're not going to sleep the whole time, give your body the amount time so that it can actually just rest. Even if it's not actual sleeping, your body actually will work up to it. It will eventually start to sleep more when it knows that you're giving it that time slot. Now, figuring out when the best time for you to sleep with working the graveyard shift, you're going to have to work around. You're going to have to like trial and error. Now, I will tell you that 8 hours is not best for everybody. I can tell you that for sure. It is not. You really need to trial and test this. So, sleep 5 hours. How do you feel? What I also would recommend is if you have an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, download a sleep tracking app. I just started doing that this year. Don't ask me why. I'm a science nut, but I just started doing it this year, and it has been so incredibly informative. And I have been messing with my sleep as well. So for me, 8 hours actually makes me kind of feel droggy. So if I get 8 hours, I have energy, but I just feel a little droggy. Where I do better around 6.5, 7 hours.
I agree. I'm the same. I've never been an 8 hour a day person. Yeah. So Randy's saying I'm usually sleeping between 2 to 5 hours, and I don't. That's you're never going to be able to function properly on 2 to 5 hours. And there were long stretches of my life where I don't need a lot of sleep, where I sleep 5 hours, but 2. Yeah, you're never going to function on 2.
50% of our population, guys, sleep deprived. And what people don't realize is sleep deprivation leads to diabetes. It leads to high blood pressure. It leads to congested heart. I mean, you name it, sleep deprivation, it leads to sleep apnea. It is, and our society is that go society. So it's all about sleep later, sleep when you're dead, but it's critically important, guys. It's critically. So I would definitely, if you sleep 2 to 5, aim for that 5, and then start trying to increase it.
I think another problem is for people who sleep the graveyard shift is, the rest of the world doesn't recognize, they still call you, they still text you. And obviously we can turn our phones off. But, the mail's still being delivered. And, I recommend the foam earplugs. I do that, and the blackout curtains. And that is saying, yeah, because it not only does that impact your physical health, it also, and that's making a great point, it leads to mental health problems. I mean, how can your brain function? That's another organ in your body. It can't function on 2 to 5 hours of sleep, not and run efficiently. That's certainly something to be mindful of, that you're going to be struggling both emotionally, physically, and
Oh, it leads to
mentally.
depression, anxiety. Yeah, it's a whole host of things.
Yeah. So Randy, get some sleep tonight.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to recommend. And I want to talk about our show, and one of Randy's problems is that he's saying his brain won't stop thinking. I mean, there are so many apps now that you can do almost like hypnosis, and put some earphones in. I have this headband earphone. I don't have it right here, but it just wraps around my head, and I can lie down so that it's not like big protruding earphones are in my ear. And that's what I utilize. And most of the time I'm a pretty decent sleeper. But and Randy, here's another great point. If you did some exercise, it makes you more tired, and it's also makes it easier to rest. Yeah, so Justin's asking a technical question, and he's wondering how to get a six pack, but really that's about body fat. It's not necessarily about working out. Men, I think it's much easier to achieve than women, because our body fat has to be so low to get that.
Yes.
And I don't want to speak about that because you have one, Amber. I'm going to let you take the floor. I do not.
So the reason why you're able to see a six pack in men before you are in women is because of the way that our bodies are arranged. So for men, it is skin, muscle, fat cells underneath that. For us, because we have this reproductive system, it's muscles, fat, and then skin. So that is why our body fat has to be lower in order for us to see abs. But I can promise you guys that you can do all the ab exercises you want to do, and you are not going to see those abs until you clean up what you do in the kitchen. It is 100% nutrition. Yes, you need to work your core, you need to do the ab workout, but believe it or not, you actually work your core when you're working the entire rest of your body. Your core is activated. So it's not so much that hardcore core workout. It's what are you doing in the kitchen? If you're eating those starches, if you're eating those refined sugars, you're not seeing those abs. I promise. It's not happening.
So let's talk about our show. So we've bantered about some ideas, but this is a good opportunity to get some feedback from the listeners, and we certainly hope they're going to tune in every week. But Amber has my program is similar to Amber's, but she's the star here. I'm just the lead. I'm going to follow her lead. So what do you want? What should we do? Should we go each week, take a piece of the program, or, advertise how we're going to discuss one step, and then in advance, see if we get folks on, and maybe we could get some people who would be willing to follow us for 7 weeks and then share their results with us. What do you think?
I think let's ask the audience. What would you guys like to see out of this show? But I do, my original thought was to cover one of the steps each week, because each step is pretty detailed, and just to kind of help them figure it out, because there's a lot of information. But I'm game for whatever they're wanting. I will cater this around what they're wanting.
So Randy's saying he's willing to follow the program. Maybe Randy's our test subject, and I think that's a great idea, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Randy, what we can give you our tips and advice on next week, and we can get some sleep this week to prepare for it. Annette agrees; she'd like to see each step, and then we get some followers, and I think that when a lot of people follow us and tune into the show after the fact, so certainly we can do that, and I think that is a great idea, and it will really be a testament to a lifestyle change, and we'll see that just over time you're going to be moving towards a goal. So Randy said he would try it. It's worth a try, and I agree.
Awesome.
And I think Randy, let's just start out with a positive mindset. It's not worth a try. You're going to succeed. You're in. You got it. There's no question about it. You know how I am about positive mindset. And Randy and I speak all week long, so I'm going to be all over him. he's not going to have time. It's not just going to be once a week on Tuesdays, Randy. You got me 7 days, so you're in trouble. And now Amber knows where to find you too. We're going to be
Yeah,
following you.
double trouble.
Yeah, you're going to be tag teamed here. So I think that that's a great idea. So what's step one? Let's preface it. Let's give us
the
sneak
breath
peek.
work, guys. It is the
breath
breath
work,
work.
okay.
All things. So what happens is that as we go through life, we hear negative things, we experience negative things, and everything gets stored on a cellular level. So over time, that stuff compounds. And then what ends up happening is you get depression or anxiety or, high blood pressure because of all this negativity. Well, our body, we have an ancient wisdom to remove all of this trauma, and it's just with breath work. So a lot of times I got clients that come to me and they suffer from a lot of aches and pains. And what I find is they have very shallow breathing. They're not breathing very full, deep breaths. Or I'll be training someone and they just stop breathing. I'm like, no, this is kind of an important part. You need to take that next breath. So we do that though when we're stressed, when our cortisol strikes and we're stressed, we tend not to breathe. It's that fight or flight symptom. So breath work is the first one. It is what rebalances your central nervous system, because nothing that we do for the endocrine system, so the nutrition, the water, the working out, none of that's really going to help unless the central nervous system is rebalanced. So it's the breath work, because we can go, hours, days without water, without food, but we can't go without oxygen, guys.
That's true. All right, so that's something great to look forward to. And what does Randy have to do to prepare for that? Does he, I can certainly send him some of the breathing.
Well, so what I'm going to offer next Tuesday when we start our show is there is a free breathing class that I will give you all a link for that you can attend. It will be earlier in the day, so it'll be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that you can attend, but you can attend every week. And even if you can't attend live, which I would recommend you doing, if you register for it, you can get the recording of it. So you can play it as often as you want.
Agreed. And then I was going to, I do want to talk about mindset and the importance of it. I'm going to I promised I would do this tonight. So Justin's an 18-year-old high school. He just graduated from high school, and he and I recently connected from coast to coast. And he's been reaching out to me, and he's a baseball player. He's a high school baseball player. And we started speaking, and he reached out to me and asked if I could help him with some mentoring and some life coaching. And we have been speaking on a daily basis. And he's been a lifelong baseball player. He's actually very good. He bats third on his high school team. And prior to a few weeks ago, he had never hit a home run, and he didn't believe in himself that he could do that. And we talked through it. I told him that he could. And since that time, he's actually hit 3 home runs within the last, I think he hit another one today. And yesterday he hit a grand slam. So I think that once he believed in himself that he could do it, I promised he asked me to give him a shout out tonight. And I'm certainly proud to do that. And I think that that's really just him making the decision that he could do it. He gives me the credit. He says I'm his good luck charm, but he had those skills and abilities in himself from the beginning. So
what is that quote that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, by Henry Ford? So
exactly.
You won't do it if you don't believe it. I promise you won't do it.
So there you go, Randy. I think that Justin certainly an example of that. And look at this. Yeah. So Justin saying, yeah, believe in yourself. And Courtney saying, that's amazing. Great job, Justin. Will Polston is saying dinger. Randy, great job. Great job, Justin. So you're getting a lot of love, Justin, and it's well-deserved. So I wanted to speak about that. So Randy, I want you to take an example, take a lesson from take a lesson from 18-year-old Justin, and if he could turn, and he's a skilled baseball player, and he still didn't believe in himself, and here he is, and he's hopefully headed to college on a scholarship and to play ball for a Division III school. So we're looking forward to following his journey. And Annette's giving me a shout out, and I appreciate it. You helped another person, Joanne. So I always love to hear that, and that's always my mission, to bring value and be a positive influence. So I appreciate that. And Amber is right there with me. Amber and I both feel the same way about that. And I think that we didn't get into the second piece, and we only have 10 minutes left. So we talked about how to look good naked, but we didn't really talk about and why you should love yourself even if you don't. And I think that life is a journey. I think that we all have scars and cellulite and stretch marks and we all struggle with some type, even when you're in the best shape. I mean, Amber, you're in phenomenal shape, and I'm sure that there are parts of your body that you may dislike. So nobody loves every single part of themselves. And I think another key thing is you can't love yourself if you hate any part of your journey, and you can't love yourself if you can dislike parts of your body and you can try to improve yourself, but regardless of how much exercise you do, you're never going to have a perfect physique. Nobody is 100%. You may not like your earlobe. You may not like your, toenail. There's always something. So just accept who you are and just always make progress. And if you want to make improvements, then do that. But don't hate yourself along the way.
And guys, we all have those stories. But what worse is the stories that we went through is the meanings that we give to those stories. So I failed at this diet, I'm a loser, and I'll never lose weight. So it's the meanings that we give to these stories. So Randy, you may have not had success before, but I promise you everything changes when you're surrounded by a community that is willing to support you. So you have the right to change the narrative on any story in your life. Change it to something that is empowering instead of disempowering. Everything in your life, I promise you, has happened for a reason. You might not see that yet, but eventually one day with each and every story, you're going to see why that thing happened.
And Will Polston said he's trying to look good. He's got to get that summer body moving. And I will tell you that Will Polston and Randy are two of the most endearing guys in the world. And certainly, I think they're handsome and I think they look great. And I don't know why they have those self-esteem issues in regard to looks, but they really are two of the greatest guys I've ever met. So I think that there's so much to be said for, we're not just a component of our looks, although they're certainly great looking guys, but they're just phenomenal guys. And I think that just speaks volumes. Personality and great looks. I think that they're both headed they're both lady killers in my book. And I think
you're always going to be your own worst critic, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
You always are. I promise you, you're never going to see yourself as beautiful as what everybody else sees you.
Absolutely. So does anybody have any questions? And, we have a few minutes here and where do you want to see us go? I mean, Justin always has a million questions and we're not going to field all those. So I love this about Will Polston. Let's put this up because this is the Will I know and love. Oh, no self-esteem issues here. He's a catch. You see me, haha. And that is the absolute truth. He's very confident, and he is a catch. Will's actually a reporter in his local news station in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and he certainly is. So if anybody wants see some confidence in action, check out some of Will's clips on air.
I tell you, Will, you've got probably the most important quality because I can make anybody's body get there. I can make anybody look the way, I think they should look, but you can't always teach or help somebody gain that self-confidence and that self-love. So you've got probably the most important piece right there.
He does. And he shares it with all of us. I mean, he makes us laugh and smile every day. So, and I actually on the back channel, Will offered to be a guest on What About Wednesday. So I'm hoping he might be my guest next week. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we can all. So here's Randy on the flip side. We have Will with his self-esteem at a high. And then we have Randy saying he's grown up around negativity in his household, so he feels more negative about myself and very low self-esteem all of his life. And you know what, Randy, you have to make the decision that's the other people's opinion are not. They don't define your worth.
Not allow other people's opinion to become your reality.
That's a great one. And they don't define your worth. You define your worth. And think about the people around you today. And, Randy's part of our administrative team here at Coast to Coast. And, he's probably I mean, besides Will, I don't want to. I think Will and Randy are probably tied for the most beloved people here on the network, and I think that um, that's exactly true. Randy has let the narrative of others impact his opinion of himself.
This reminds me of a little story. So I'm sure everybody's heard this about the Navajo grandmother that was talking to her grandson and said that within each of us, there's two wolves battling at all times. You have one wolf that shows love, compassion. I'm sorry, one wolf is jealous and has envy in his heart, and the glass is always half empty. So for this wolf, the world is very unpleasant. Not a lot of good things happen to them. But in another wolf inside of you is very powerful. This wolf shows love, compassion, and the glass is half empty. So people are great, the situation is wonderful, and this wolf can take you powerful places. So the grandson looks up at the grandmother and says, "Well, which wolf won? Which wolf wins?" And she says, "The one you feed, grandson, the one you feed." So in my opinion, we are bombarded in society with a lot of negativity, whether that comes from people that we're face to face with, news, media, everything out there is negativity. So we get to choose what's going to be our external stimuli. So even though you're going to have negative people in your life, I have many family members that are negative. I let what they say go in one ear and out the other. So I'm not terminating the relationship. They're my family, but that doesn't mean that I have to allow what they say to hold space up here. They can say it and I can forget it.
I think you also said something so powerful tonight when you spoke about those friendships that you let go. Uh, some people are dead weight, and some people you just have to move forward. And that doesn't mean that you love them less. It just means that they've served their purpose at this moment. It also doesn't mean they're not going to come back around in your life. And even Annette and myself, I mean, that's funny that we speak about that. There was a break in our relationship for a long time, but when it was time and appropriate for that relationship to heal itself, then the universe allowed for that to happen, and we came back into each other's lives. And I think it was 10 years later, 8 years later, I don't remember. But it just wasn't our time. And when it was our time, it came back around. And I think that's when you let people go, it doesn't mean you're letting them go forever. It just means that you both have to grow differently before you can grow back apart. Come back together. So that's something to be mindful of.
I mean, that's everybody to look up Tyler Perry. He's got a little YouTube video about the tree of life, and it's extremely powerful about how he talks about relationships are often just like leaves on a tree. They're really only there for a season, but we tend to want to keep them for a lifetime. And then you have relationships that are kind of like sticks and branches, but you got to be careful about those because you step out on them and they break. All you really need in your life is those root friends, those people that are there, the good and the bad, the dead, the alive. They're always there. You just need those root friends. So be careful about those leaves. Be careful with those branches. Just focus on the roots.
So I think that's a perfect way to end. I don't mean, because we're also coming back next week, guys. So we're going to be on Tuesdays. We're going to be on Tuesdays, and we're going to have what are we coming on? 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday. So we're looking forward to our collaboration, and I've already learned a lot from Amber myself tonight. So I hope you all have as well, and hopefully I gave you a nugget or two too. But and then we're looking forward, and thanks to all the listeners. Thank you, Justin, Randy, Will, Annette.
Yes, we love your engagement. Thank you.
Yes, it was great. Courtney, thanks for tuning in. And Courtney's an aspiring coach, and just that's another point. There's a lot to learn for people who are. Courtney's getting herself certified to be a coach, and she's actually collaborating with me in the future, and I'm hoping that she's going to take over the realm of that piece of my ambitions, because I'm looking forward to that. So that's great, and I'm trying to look back, make sure we didn't miss anybody. And we didn't. And of course, I always end and great thanks to Chris behind the scenes. He's the best producer in the biz, and we certainly appreciate him, man in the controls in the back. We couldn't do a successful show without you, Chris. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
And I think he can play us out, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Amber. It was great fun.
Thank you, Joanne.